The last light of the evening drifted across the valley like a slow breath, settling into the folds of land and stone. A narrow path wound between tall grasses that swayed gently, though there was no wind anyone could feel. The air itself seemed to move out of habit, remembering how evenings were supposed to behave. Somewhere far away, a stream murmured to itself, repeating the same soft phrase again and again, never in a hurry to finish the thought. A traveler walked along the path, unburdened by bags or purpose. There was no sense of where the traveler had come from or where the path might lead. Each step landed easily, as if the ground rose up to meet the foot rather than the other way around. The traveler's breathing fell into rhythm with the quiets of the valley, slow and even, as though the body understood this was a place where nothing needed to be rushed. The sky above was painted in layers. Pale gold near the horizon faded into soft lavender, then into a deep, reassuring blue. No sharp colors existed here. Everything blended gently, as if the world had been brushed with a careful hand, smoothing away harsh edges. Clouds drifted lazily, stretched thin like wool pulled between fingers, and they seemed content to remain exactly where they were. As the traveler continued, the path curved toward a small village resting at the edge of the valley. The village did not announce itself. There were no walls, no gates, no signs. It simply appeared, as though it had always been there and always would be. Low houses with rounded roofs clustered together, built from stone worn smooth by time. Warm lights glowed faintly from their windows, steady and calm, not flickering, not demanding attention. The traveler felt no urgency to reach the village, yet the path guided each step there all the same. With every breath, the sense of distance softened. The sounds of the valley grew quieter, not disappearing, but blending into a single gentle hush. Even the stream's murmur faded into something more like a memory of sound than sound itself. At the village edge stood an old tree, wide and patient. Its branches spread outward in a way that suggested it had long ago given up reaching for the sky and instead chosen to rest. The leaves were dark and full, overlapping so closely that they formed a natural shelter beneath. The traveler paused there, not because the tree demanded it, but because stopping felt like the right thing to do. Beneath the tree, the ground was cool and smooth. Roots curved above the surface in slow, graceful arcs, polished by years of passing feet and settling dust. The traveler sat, leaning lightly against the trunk. The tree held steady, offering support without effort. There was a feeling here that time moved differently, not slower exactly, but deeper, as though each moment had more room inside it. From this place, the village could be seen clearly. People moved quietly along narrow lanes, their steps unhurried. No one spoke loudly. When voices did rise, they carried a soft tone, like conversation meant to be shared only with the air itself. Doors opened and closed without sound. Lamps were lit one by one, each adding a small circle of warmth to the evening. The traveler noticed that no one seemed surprised by anyone else. Each person appeared exactly where they belonged, doing exactly what they were meant to do, without question. A baker wiped flour from their hands and smiled at nothing in particular. A child sat on a stone step, watching a beetle trace careful lines in the dust. An elder rocked gently in a chair, eyes half closed, breathing in time with the fading light. Eventually, the traveler arose and walked into the village. The path narrowed into a lane that curved softly, never straight for long. Stone beneath foot was warm, as if it had stored sunlight all day and was now releasing it slowly, generously. The air carried a faint scent of bread, herbs, and clean water. A small house near the center of the village stood slightly apart from the others. Its door was open, though no light spilled out. Inside, the space felt larger than it appeared from the outside, as though the walls had learned to stretch when needed. A single table sat in the center, smooth and worn. On it rested a bowl filled with clear water. The traveler approached the table and looked into the bowl. The surface of the water was perfectly still, reflecting not the room, but the sky as it had been earlier, layered with gold and lavender. As the traveler watched, the reflection slowly changed, deepening into twilight, then into night. Stars emerged one by one, mirrored in the water with astonishing clarity. There was no instruction, no voice telling the traveler what to do. Still, the traveler reached out and touched the water. It was cool, but not cold. The moment the fingertip broke the surface, the ripples rippled outward, forming slow-moving rings of light. Each ripple expanded, then faded, leaving the surface calm once more. With that simple motion, a feeling settled into the room. It was the feeling of completion, not of an ending, but of something being gently set in place. The traveler withdrew their hand, and the water returned to perfect stillness, now reflecting a deep, endless night sky. Outside, the village had grown quieter. Most lights were dimmed or extinguished entirely. The lanes were empty, not abandoned, but resting. The travelers stepped back outside and felt the night air settle around their shoulders like a familiar blanket. At the far end of the village, another path led away, winding toward low hills that rose like sleeping animals against the horizon. The traveler followed it without thought. The ground sloped upward just enough to be noticed, encouraging a slower pace. With each step, the sounds of the village faded until there was only the soft rhythm of walking and breathing. The hills were covered in short grass that shimmered faintly in the starlight. Fireflies drifted lazily, their lights blinking on and off in no particular pattern. They seemed unconcerned with being seen. Their glow was not for display, but simply part of how they existed in the world. At the crest of the first hill, the traveler stopped again. From here, the valley spread out below, the village nestled within it like a single quiet thought. Beyond the valley, forests stretched into the distance, dark and dense, their tops forming a slow, uneven line beneath the stars. The sky now was vast and clear. Stars filled it completely, no empty spaces between them, yet nothing felt crowded. Each star held its own place, shining steadily, without competing for attention. The moon hung low, not bright, but gentle, casting a soft silver light that smoothed the landscape even further. The traveler lay down in the grass. It bent easily, cradling the body without resistance. The earth beneath was cool and solid, reassuring in its stillness. Breathing slowed naturally, deepening as the chest rose and fell in an unforced rhythm. As the traveler lay there, memories drifted through the mind, not sharply, but like images seen through water. Moments from other times, other places, appeared and dissolved without clinging. There was no need to follow them, no need to understand. They passed as clouds pass across the sky, leaving no mark behind. The stars above seemed to move, though so slowly it was almost impossible to tell. Constellations shifted by fractions, rearranging themselves into shapes that felt familiar even if they had never been named. The traveler felt a quiet sense of recognition, as though the sky was reminding them of something long known but rarely remembered. Somewhere nearby, an animal moved through the grass, its presence announced only by the softest rustle. It passed without fear, without curiosity, simply sharing the same space for a moment before continuing on.
the night accepted all of it without judgment. Time stretched, not into something endless, but into something complete. Each second felt full, rounded, as though it had no sharp edges to catch on. The traveler's thoughts slowed until they became less like sentences and more like gentle impressions. Eventually, the traveler arose again. Movement felt as natural as stillness. The path on the far side of the hill descended into a wide meadow bathed in moonlight. Mist lay low over the grass, drifting in slow currents that followed no obvious rule. Walking through the meadow felt like passing through a dream. The mist parted easily, cool against the skin, then closed again behind each step. The air smelled faintly of night-blooming flowers, their shapes barely visible, their presence known more by scent than sight. At the center of the meadow stood a small lake, perfectly round, its surface smooth as glass. The moon's reflection lay at its center, unbroken. The traveler approached the water's edge and sat once more, feet resting on the cool earth. The lake was quiet in a way that felt intentional, as though it had chosen silence. When the traveler breathed, the sound seemed to vanish before reaching the water. Even the stars reflected there appeared calmer, their light softened. The traveler dipped a hand into the lake. This time the ripples moved outward endlessly, never quite fading, yet never disturbing the surface enough to break its calm. The water felt like a continuation of the night itself. A sense of drowsiness settled in, not heavy, not sudden, but gradual and kind. Muscles relaxed without being told. The traveler leaned back, supported by the gentle slope of the ground, and let the sky fill their vision once more. Above, the stars continued their slow dance. Below, the earth held steady. Between the two, the traveler existed in a quiet balance, neither rising nor falling, simply being. The traveler remained there for a long while, though the idea of time had softened into something less precise. Breathing continued steady and quiet, and with each breath, the sense of separation between the traveler and the night grew thinner. At some point that did not announce itself, the traveler stood again. There was no feeling of waking or deciding, only a natural return to motion. The lake stayed calm behind them, keeping its reflection of stars without protest. A narrow path revealed itself along the far edge of the meadow. The traveler followed it, as the mists thinned and the land rose gently. The air grew cooler, carrying the scent of pine and clean earth. Above, the stars felt closer. The path led into a forest that welcomed without ceremony.
The evening arrived slowly, without announcement, as if it had always been there and the day had simply stepped aside to reveal it. The sky softened from blue into muted shades of silver and pale rose, and the world seemed to exhale. Fields stretched wide and quiet beneath the fading light, their grasses leaning gently toward one another, whispering in tones too low to hear. A quiet road curved through the landscape, smooth and well-worn, though no one remembered when it had first been made. Along this road walked a solitary figure, moving without hurry, without destination pressing from ahead or behind. Each step felt easy, placed with care but no effort, as if the road itself guided the feet exactly where they needed to go. The air was cool and calm, carrying the faint scent of earth and distant water. Somewhere far away, an owl called once, then fell silent, satisfied. The sound did not echo, it simply settled into the evening like everything else. As the road continued, it passed beside a wide orchard. Trees stood in long, orderly rows, their branches heavy with unseen fruit. Leaves rustled softly, though there was no breeze strong enough to explain it. The figure slowed, drawn by the peaceful order of the place. Moonlight filtered through the branches, scattering gentle patterns across the ground. Walking between the trees felt like stepping into a memory. The air was warmer here, protective, and the sounds of the outside world faded until there was only the quiet rhythm of breathing and footsteps. The orchard seemed to stretch farther than expected, each row leading calmly into the next, but there was no sense of being lost. At the orchard's center stood a small stone bench, smooth and cool as though it had been waiting for centuries. The figure sat, resting hands loosely in their lap. Overhead, branches formed a soft canopy, and the moon hung between them, round and patient. Time passed without counting itself. Thoughts drifted in and out, light and unimportant, like clouds crossing a still sky. Nothing needed solving, nothing needed remembering. The simple act of sitting felt complete. Eventually, the figure arose and continued on. The orchard opened onto a gentle hillside where the road narrowed into a footpath and began to descend. Below lay a quiet town, its lights glowing softly, never bright enough to disturb the night. Each light seemed placed with intention, offering warmth without calling attention to itself. The path led toward the town, but stopped just short, turning instead toward a river that flowed along its edge. The river moved slowly, its surface smooth and dark, reflecting stars in long, wavering lines. A wooden bridge crossed it, old but sturdy, its boards worn smooth by countless peaceful crossings. Pausing at the center of the bridge, the figure leaned lightly against the railing. The water below murmured gently, a steady, reassuring sound. It carried no urgency, no message, only motion. Watching it felt like listening to a familiar voice speaking without words. Beyond the bridge, the path continued into open countryside again, leading toward low rolling hills. The town remained behind, resting quietly, its lights dimming one by one as the night deepened. The hills welcomed the figure with open space and cool air. Grass brushed softly against ankles, bending easily, springing back once passed. Fireflies appeared here and there, their brief glows blinking like gentle reminders that the night was alive, but untroubled. Reaching the top of a hill, the figure stopped. From this height, the land stretched endlessly, layered with shadows and silver light. The sky above was wide and full, stars scattered generously, each shining without effort. The figure lay down in the grass. The ground was cool and supportive, holding without pressing. Above, the stars seemed to drift slowly, not moving so much as breathing. The body relaxed naturally, muscles releasing tension they had long forgotten they were holding. Breathing slowed. Each inhale felt deep and complete, each exhale soft and unhurried. The sounds of the night blended together, distant water, rustling grass, the faint call of something unseen, forming a single soothing presence. Sleep did not arrive suddenly. It approached like a tide, gentle and patient. Awareness softened at the edges. Thoughts became fewer, then quieter, until they were no longer thoughts at all, just a sense of calm being. The hills rested, the river flowed, the town slept. The sky watched over everything without judgment or demand. And within that peaceful night, rest settled fully, carrying the world and everything in it into a deep, steady stillness that continued on, calm and uninterrupted, as the night held its quiet watch.